Hello, friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Play Along Podcast, the podcast where we play through games. And in today's episode, we are here with the finale of 1000xRESIST. I'm very excited to get into this episode and talk about some of these ending events because this game gets wild. I'm your host, Jared, and I'm joined with Kai and Ben as always. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
Doing good, well. Man. Doing good.
We're at the end of a journey.
Yeah. Interested to talk about this leg.
Yeah, I feel like it always sneaks up on me. I feel like the endings of the episodes, like we start and then all of a sudden, and granted our seasons are shorter, like we only do 4 episodes instead of doing like 13 episodes on a single game like we were doing before, which in hindsight feels crazy that we spent that much time in one game. Probably why we were so crazy during our Chrono Trigger season, because 9 weeks back to back of that, you know, really wears on your soul. But
it does. Brings you down.
But Kai loved it.
Yeah, Kai did love it. Yeah,
he did. Famously.
Famously. Can't stop talking about it.
I was recording. I have the soundbite. You just said you love the game. So I'm just going to post that on socials and then everyone will be happy. No one will be upset.
Like, finally. Yeah. It took a while for it to settle in. And by a while, I mean 3 years.
4 years since we did that. Yeah.
Finally, it's starting to dawn on me.
You were really mulling over it the whole time, really going through the narrative and the story beats and everything like that too.
Yeah.
But joining us for the finale, as you heard, is Jordan from Cognitive Clips and Drop In, Drop Out podcast. Jordan, so excited to have you on the podcast for the finale. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Excited to be here. This was one of my really standout game from a couple years ago, so I always love having a chance to talk about it. So glad to be here.
Yeah, and it's I didn't know, I guess sort of spoilery for the ending of this, but there's multiple endings of this game. I think there's only a few that give you like
there's
the canonical
two true endings.
Yeah, there's 2 true endings.
7 silly
I got not only what is considered one of the true endings, but what is considered the best true ending.
I think you got the
purely
same
accidental
flex.
Yeah.
I went back and did all of them. So
I went on YouTube. I was like, I'm not.
Yeah, I just did YouTube as well.
Well, we'll get into it, but yes, it's not complicated.
Yeah. I think Ben, we got the same. So when I looked on my achievements after I beat the game, we got the same achievement. So I think we had the same.
The Amethyst Blue or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Epitaph Blue and red.
Epitaph Blue. Yeah.
I
but
think
listeners,
I got that one too, actually.
Oh, nice! Look at us. I wonder if
Look
Kai got
at
the
us.
same way.
We get all of them.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's true. You did do all of them. But listeners will recognize Jordan was on the podcast before. Ben and Jordan did a Get Wrecked together where they talked about both of your games are immediately blanking in my mind. What you guys talked about
Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, and Persona 3.
How did I forget about
it,
Claire Obscure? That was like the 4th Claire Obscure episode we did that year. So
right behind me, actually. Got the art from IGN behind me. So
Nice.
I'm a fan, I guess you could say.
but regardless of my memory of the games, it was a great episode. So you definitely should go and listen to it because it was
Sounds
a good
like
time.
it. Yeah, you loved it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So much. And you know what? Anything, just me pushing the Expedition 33 propaganda more and more. So I mean, pushing Kai to continue playing it. I mean, you're done with 1000xRESIST at this point, so now you have ample time to do it.
My man's going to do another rerun of Cyberpunk or something. He's not going to.
Also, ample time. We're going to dive into another series. What are you talking about?
I guess that's fair.
This doesn't end. This just keeps going, and there's going to be something else I have to play. So
True.
Until you make the resistance jump, and then eventually it all stops.
Yeah, eventually you're just like, I'm not playing this, guys. I'm not playing another 90s turn-based RPG. I'm just going to step out for this season, and you guys can...
I quit.
I quit the podcast. But Jordan, I want you to let the people know, if they don't know about you, Cognitive Clips, or Drop In, Drop Out podcast, tell them a little bit about what you and the team over there are doing.
Yeah, so on Cognitive Clips, that's my personal YouTube channel. It's mostly essay-style videos, kind of deeper dives into themes or genre mechanics, things like that. And then for Drop In, Drop Out, that's where several of us get together on a weekly basis and chat about everything video games. We had a lovely anniversary celebration just last weekend where we got to actually meet in person for the first time. So that was a lot of fun. Did our fantasy critic draft, did some like kind of game show style stuff as well, and just kind of vibed for the first time in the same room together. So that was a ton of fun. We're still in the middle of chopping that up and putting it up on YouTube because it was I think total like 18 hours worth of stuff that we did. So
that's great. I kept going back and you guys were still live. And I was like, oh my God, they're still here.
You got to make the most of it, right? Like
Exactly. But yeah, that was awesome. So
yeah, it's a good. I love the idea of drop in, drop out. Not only like the name, but like the 7 of you and how you all kind of rotate being hosts or being like expert on a specific topic, and the idea of having a constant like rotating cast of crew that you can come in, I think is cool because then you get some different people all the time, people that have different specialties and loves with specific kinds of genres of video games or anything like that too. So it's a good time for sure. I love it.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure. And you can find links to all that below as well. So you can check out both Cognitive Clips and Drop In, Drop Out podcast. But
yeah, dropindropoutpod.com will have all the links to everyone's individual stuff as well as our own like joined efforts there. So one-stop shop for you.
One-stop shop. And okay, well with that, I say let's do a little housekeeping and then get into this this finale, gentlemen. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Okay,
let's do. I guess if you want to. Well, whether this is your first episode or your 296th episode, welcome to Play Along Podcast, the podcast where we play through games in a book club format. What we do is the three of us, me, Kai, and Ben, each take turns picking a game. We then break the game down into sections and come together every other week to talk about the section specifically. I said it, every episode of 1000xRESIST, but we are going full spoilers into this. And with this game specifically and other games that are very narrative heavy, I think going into the game blind is probably your best experience. So either, again, play the game along with us or just take that into consideration, play the game first, and then come back and listen to the show because it's a good time. And I usually see 1000xRESIST discounted all the time, various kinds of discounts between on Steam sales and everything like that too. So it is not a bad game to pick up at any point too. And I for sure recommend it. On top of that, we also have another series. Like I said, Jordan was on it as Get Wrecked, where we grab a guest from the internet and swap video game recommendations. This month's episode, Ben was joined by Kate from No Small Games, and they talked about Grun, and they talked about why is my brain breaking today? Grun. Hold on, don't tell me. Please don't tell me. They talked about Grun, and they talked about.
He was talking about it literally 7 minutes ago.
Yep. I didn't even pay attention. I know the answer.
Okay, help me. I'm sorry. I got nothing.
The Artful Escape.
The Artful Escape. That's what I said, and it was edited, so I looked super smart. That was crazy. I got that on the first try.
That's gonna be hard to cut around. I'm gonna be honest. That one's.
It's not going to be hard to post on social media, though. I'll tell you that.
Appreciate that.
This is how we find that Jared has early onset Alzheimer's. Is that he keeps forgetting the games we're playing.
Yeah, exactly. But that was last week's episode, so if you haven't, make sure to go check out that episode. Again, my memory aside, it was a great time. So go and check out that episode. But yes, with that, let's jump into the finale here of 1000xRESIST. At the end of the last episode, or the last time we were talking about 1000xRESIST, the train had blew up. Fixer kind of burned the train down. Watcher had officially died, and we were on the tracks just trying to find whatever our next step was going to be. We kick off here in chapter 9 at what seems like kind of like the end of this train station. There's probably like multiple places where it kind of ends. We saw that when we had gone to ALLMOTHER for the first time. It was like a different ending to the station. But this is a little bit different. I don't know if you guys kind of had this vibe when you got here too, but the bottom of this, and especially once you climb up the escalator and go to the top, environmentally, this looks very different than what we've seen kind of prior to some of the other places. Did you guys get those vibes?
It looked like the bridge of a ship.
I thought I was in space.
That's what I thought. I thought space too.
I mean, we were technically correct in our assumption there, but
it very much has like
space.
No, but it definitely has like the bridge vibe. I'm kind of thinking like the Enterprise, like Star Trek or something. Like it's got that kind of like there's enough space for everyone to kind of go about and do their thing. There seemed to be like central units where things were controlled. Like it looked kind of like a command station of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. Did you get kind of those same vibes, Jordan, when you were kind of playing this for the first time? Did you kind of get some vibes there?
I'm trying to remember if I did, honestly, because I played through it. It's for the full thing. It's been about a year and a half at the most, but it's very stark in the sense that it's, aside from the bodies laying around, a lot more like pristine and like just kind of white and like chrome, kind of like a vibe to it. It's not all like there's no plant life, there's no buildings around. It's just all kind of very clean and sterile,
business, right? Like like it's a place for something to happen. It's not a living quarters or anything like that,
right? Yeah. But the the whole situation that's going on here is Fixer's trying to activate whatever this is, trying to get into kind of the information that's there. And we find out to do so, we have to find the person with essentially the highest clearance. Because like Jordan had said, there's bodies riddled throughout the entirety of this place. And I was interested because it seemed like the events from Iris killing all the soldiers happened a long time ago. So like for me, I was like wondering how these bodies were still here and preserved. But our goal now is to kind of not really do a communion, but use Secretary and kind of go back to the events that happened in this ship here. And again, find out who has the highest clearance and find whichever body they are so we can use their, because I think it's like an eye scanner, like an eye biometric that you have to use in order to unlock the thing. So we're trying to find out which one of these people have the highest clearance. So we're kind of going back through the events of what happened here. And man, this was a fucked up situation. Like this whole thing happening here. So we knew about the soldiers and how they were, rounding up Iris, and they were cloning Iris, and they were trying to kind of replicate her resistance to the disease that was happening. That was like the base level of what we knew about this. What we didn't know is this seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, this seems like one of many ships that were kind of doing this, that were trying to going into their ship and escaping from this disease.
At least 50.
The organization was called the 50, and that's like when they first reveal, like that's why they're called that, is because there's like 50 total generation ships, as they end up calling it in like at the end of this segment.
And if I remember rightly, they're all like burrowing underground, like away from the surface.
Yes, in the ocean.
The ocean.
Oh, that would be okay, right?
They're descending into the seas of the world to avoid.
Okay. So it's like a giant submarine ship.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, and their plan is that they are using the other ships as a distraction, who are essentially going to die because the occupants feed off of emotion and reaction, and so no one knows who's going to live or die, and they use the ships that are inevitably going to die as a way for the other ships to get away and burrow deep enough that they can't be affected, which super fucked up. And it seems that only I think there's like 6 or 7 that actually make it at the end of the day, one of them being like 42 or something like that, and that's essentially it.
There's that whole sequence where like there's like one of the memories, because we're doing the time travel thing again, so the area around us isn't changing. We're kind of getting these like ghosts of the past that we're like interacting with.
We also learn that there is multiple individual, well, not Iris. We know there's multiple Irises because they keep cloning that bitch, but multiple individuals who are immune that are being studied on in these generational ships.
Which, if I am interpreting this right, from what I understand, the occupants brought the disease with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting ahead of myself, but we learn later on that they were traveling through space and they were called to Earth because of the memories that were being created essentially from like people who had been through traumatic things, and the source, as we learn, is called become attached to Iris, and I think that's why Iris is immune.
Yes, so the occupants themselves that came to Earth choose, if they want to, I assume they have some autonomy, they choose a individual that they want to be like their host connection, essentially. So an individual that, and ironically, I mean, once again, feels very validating. The entire reason that this occupant chose Iris is because she was such a fucking dick that she was like, wow, this person's really good at making people miserable. This is awesome. I'm going to choose this person to be the person that I commune with, essentially. So,
and like all the stuff that had been done to her from like, especially her mother and all that. So it's like, it's
that was
a little
more
bit of both,
what I picked up on.
That she had a lot of trauma. They were going towards people with loads of trauma.
I mean, the line directly before that is like, because they're talking about the way she treated Zhao, and she was like, that's the reason we select. So I mean, it's either both or it's that she's an asshole.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's kind of like you said, the high emotion and like the memory side of things, and memories that have high emotion. So I think it's probably a little bit of both, because that's what they respond to. Because the entire time we're going through kind of this memories, the guards and the individuals on the ship that we're on are talking about how we have to make sure we're keeping calm, not having kind of too extreme emotions, because that's what the occupants attach to. That, and again, memories that have those high emotions too, because the occupants have a lack of that. They find connection through memory, and that's why Iris was kind of like the bridge between humans and the occupants, because they couldn't communicate with each other, so they used memory, which is how the communions all started, in order to communicate with one another.
That's why I mentioned it. I couldn't remember. I knew I was going somewhere, but it was because of what you just said, Jared, about how like they're trying to remain kind of calm, and then we have this situation, which is when the ships finally get destroyed.
It was Ellie's screen.
No, that was on Jordan's side.
Oh, yeah.
The ships finally get destroyed, and all of I think they lose like 7 or 8 of them. And the guy, like, I think it's Jonathan, who's like the head guy. Johnson, that's it. He's kind of like, he's like, well, we've done it, we've succeeded, we're past. Like, we just have to focus on that. And what was interesting is the whole time you're doing this kind of time skip, I don't know if this is why Iris created them. That was the impression I got. But each of the main people speaking have a color function that matches up with the sisters that we were going. So there's one that's orange, there's one that's pink, one that's green, and they kind of seem to suit those roles. So it was almost like once they died and Iris communed with the source and killed off the 50, she then realized that she needed people to do those roles that
just made people
the 50 were doing. But after all of the stuff with the ships going down, shit just gets crazy. Like, people start like topping themselves because they can't kind of live with the guilt, and they can't live with the isolation of being on this ship. You have that one scene where I forget which one it is. I think it's Mimi. No, Mimi gets stabbed. Yeah. One of them stabs Mimi, and then another one jumps off the bridge onto the floor below.
Yeah. Well, they all start realizing that kind of like their efforts here are futile, right? Mimi's whole job was to, again, make a cure or an immunity, replicate the immunity so they can ultimately go back to the surface. That's why we got a lot of that in the beginning, this idea of going back to the surface, because that was the main goal of the 15 here in the first place. And I wasn't sure where they were going with it, but Mimi was talking about like, oh, the clones are entering their 3rd trimester. And I was like, are they getting these things pregnant? But then they talked about, we also haven't, we haven't gone back to the plan of inseminating the original. And I'm just like, this is crazy. This is insane.
It gets so so messed up. And the more you see, the more it's like, man, this is terrible.
I mean,
which makes sense why it was Iris.
Terrible.
Iris that is the one that stabbed Mimi.
Yeah, one person fucking. I mean, look, you're underground. Humanity's fucked. There's an alien invasion that is causing people to expel all of their juices out of their body. You're going to try some fucked up shit eventually. You're like, look. Yeah. Also, they were approved to accelerate the program because there was the two...
Johnson did give them a go, okay.
Yeah, because there was the 2 essentially like immune people. The other ship decided to go the slow route over time with less risk. And then Iris's ship decided to just start cloning the shit out of her and see what happens. So right. Once again, I don't feel too like, oh, it's so surprising that they like are doing
fucked up.
That's the thing. It's not that it's like it makes sense in the context, but it's still like, whoa, man.
I mean, there's a lot more real fucked up shit that happened in real life for way less important reasons.
Okay, sure. Sure, that's fair. Like Ben said, you can kind of see the slow decline between everyone, because in the beginning, people kind of had high hopes. They talked about, they created rooms that look like islands and tropical paradises, which I'm assuming is what the orchard was. It was just one of those type of things. And then slowly people decline into insanity because they're trapped in here and they just want to escape.
I think it also comes, because like 1 is the like hub for them of all of the different ships.
Yeah, Central 1.
Central 1 is like the group that is essentially controlling everything and running this. They die, we assume, since we lose contact with them in the beginning. So I think that also like kills morale, because it's like, okay, the entire point, the entire people controlling all of this are gone. It's essentially just us alone down here, and our only hope is to successfully be able to like synthesize some cure from this child who's a pain in the ass. So it's like, you know, might as well off myself, jump off the bridge of the ship and see how that gets me, which is what happens.
I was also like, I'm very much overthinking this, but I was like surprised there were still bodies.
Well, that's what I said in the beginning. I was like, I thought
it's been like 1,000 years.
They're
right?
in like suits.
Yeah, well, that's what Secretary
says.
Suits. Secretary says the suits have preserved the bodies really well. But
I
thought the same thing.
Some convenient plot armor. There's a couple things like that in the end of this game where they're like, yeah, it just happens to be this way, and you're like, okay, sure there.
Because my brain was bouncing around between like, oh, did this not happen as far away as we thought it was? Because, you know, Iris killed these people a long time ago and things like that.
Also,
you know?
I forgot about the revolt. There's like the whole scene where they start shutting off areas of this like main hub bit, and almost kind of like, I mean, I kind of saw it. I was like, oh, this is like a reflection of like the Umbrella riots and stuff, and like how like that kind of like they were trying to gain access to somewhere. The soldiers told them they couldn't. They kept on pressing, so the soldiers opened fire and ended up killing a bunch of their like fellow shipmates. And it was kind of
and all that heightened emotion brought an occupant too. And
exactly, and that was kind of and then I'm assuming that's what brought the occupant that allowed the Iris to then kind of commune with that. I guess that kind of opened that wormhole.
Iris was selected before this.
Yeah, Iris was selected.
That's why she was. She had already been chosen by an occupant at that point in time.
But I'm assuming that the occupant didn't know where she was, and so by doing that, because she had to commune with it to kill them later on. Right?
I don't know if it's the same occupant or a different occupant that came from the emotions.
I didn't think about that. I was like more than one or different ones at this point too.
There was a boatload of them at one point in time.
Yeah.
So
we find out that I think his name's George. George ends up becoming the head because Johnson leaves, or Johnson tries to leave, or did he die?
He dies. Johann Johnson, which is a terrible name, by the way. It's just bad alliteration. But yes, I believe he dies, and George becomes the de facto leader after the riots and shooting of other crewmates, essentially cleaning up the mess that all of these fucking people have.
Yeah, it's just wild seeing, and it's just wild like going through the memories of this and just seeing the slow decline of this place.
Right.
It's interesting as well though, because it kind of like mirrors a lot of like what Iris ends up like though, right? And like how she ends up treating the sisters in the orchard and stuff. That kind of like she's almost seen like what happens when people are given free will. So it's kind of like I have to take that away from them, and they have to have a purpose, and they have to follow and do what they're told to do.
I mean, we talk about the idea of like generational trauma has been brought up a lot during this, and you kind of see that reflected in Iris, and then you see that reflected in Principal, and you kind of see it continuing on where, you know, the strive to do better than your parent, and then you end up falling into the same path and the same routine that they were doing in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, striving to do better than your parent and really fucking failing over and over again. Doing worse, actually. Somehow being a worse person, which is surprising. It does explain, however, though, the underground area that looks like a city, because I was like, this shit makes no goddamn sense. Now it makes a little bit more sense where you're like, okay, so there was like different sections of the ship that were like
they were trying to replicate cities of real life so people can have a sense of normalcy down here. But it
is hilarious though to like, I mean, because it's like essentially a slum, so it's like you're just like, you live in the broke ass section of the ship. Like everyone gets to live in a big garden, and you're in the like, you know, you're in a 1-bedroom studio apartment in a city.
Man, sometimes when you're from the ghetto, you just want those roots back, right? You want that familiar feeling.
Mattress on the floor, popcorn ceiling. This is what I need. This is my
childhood you're explaining right now.
Those popcorn ceilings, man, like they have destroyed my knuckles more times than I can count. I'm just like, I'm just trying to like, you know, fling a sheet like to get out the wrinkles. I'm like, oh no, I'm bleeding again. Okay,
yeah.
Whose idea was this? You know,
some people miss it, and they need it even in the weird apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah.
But we take George's eyes.
We clone George's eyes.
Because Healer is really like weird about eyes. She's just like really on an eye kick right now.
Healer,
I love Healer, dude.
Healer explains that she has been developing technology independently of being asked to make perfect humans, essentially. She's cloning the best parts of all of the clones, the very specific features, brain, hair, eyes, whatever it may be. And so she has technology in her little weird fucking briefcase where she could just be like, I'm going to take this person's eyes, which weird and creepy. And I don't know why you wouldn't just lift Mr. George up and put him onto the retinal scanner, but I guess, you know,
cloning. If you take his helmet off and his whole body just like dissipates.
You would have to take his helmet off to get to his eyes anyway. So
I'm not sure. It seemed to me like whatever she had in her briefcase, it was like almost like the template, like the base for eyeballs, but then she had to get access to his body to actually like replicate the exact like scanning or whatever is what it seemed like to me, but I'm not sure.
They don't break down the science of the eyeball taking in
her. What something I didn't realize. Sorry, go on.
I was just like her, just her dialogue that entire time was like, "Oh yeah, just leave me alone with my eyes. It's fine."
Yeah, yeah, Healer's great. I love Healer.
Something I didn't realize until this leg of the game is that Healer's eyes have been covered this entire game. I did not realize this, and it probably makes sense as to why she's not doing such a good job of cloning everybody or finding a cure.
No, she can see. They're her version of glasses. I mean, technically, they're all nearsighted, so they all need glasses because they're all clones of Iris. And
I guess that's true. She wore glasses, so
either they have corrective surgery, they get some LASIK down there, or you wear the Star Trek fucking shades over yourself.
There you go.
Yeah,
I mean, it also just might be like the whole like medical thing, like you don't want fluids getting in your eyes and mouth, so you cover them since you're the person responsible for that. So
it also kind of was interesting. So I mean, I'll talk about it more towards the end of this, but like I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, like trying to see what other kind of people thought about the ending of the game and what kind of themes other people spotted. And something that kind of came up was that like her mask and her eyes being covered are reflective of like her not wanting to see what the All-Mother was doing in the communion that she had with Watcher.
Ooh. Kind of like I'm blissfully unaware of what was actually happening.
We're really we're really
I know. I don't know what I think about that, but like somebody's made a comparison to like it being kind of like ignorant and her like literally like
intentionally
choosing not to see like not to see what was being done and stuff. I was like,
once again, I'm pretty sure she could see, so
yeah.
So I don't.
Well, I did the same thing as Ben, where there's a lot of that where people. I think it's fun when people coming up with their own theories. We talked about it before the podcast, me and Jordan, but Mr. The Human did an interview with Remy Sue, of this game, and one of the things they point out, which is that resist is an anagram for sister, which Remy was saying wasn't intentional, but he was like, "Oh my god, like that makes so much sense now." I think about it. Like
he's got them Duffer Bros ass responses where they're like, "What about this thing?" And they're like, "I didn't think about that." Yeah, I had no idea.
But it's a great interview. Obviously he doesn't like give all the answers to things because they want to keep some things for up for interpretation or whatever. But it's a great interview though.
Oh, absolutely. At this point too, we kind of get the rest of the quote unquote resistance is coming up, right? Everyone from the underground, we get the other sisters, we get the Zhaos that come up as well, and they all seem. I was under the impression that kind of like we're all working together on the same page, but at this point, you really see that everyone has a different goal here. Every single group has a different kind of goal of motivation.
I think
what they want.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like they were all aiming for the same goal, which is to abolish the government and to take down principle. Yeah. However, they all want to do it in different ways and they all want different outcomes as to what happens after. Like some of them, like the people who, the self-immolation sisters, the ones that set themselves on fire, they want to like live as things were before the government. And you have like the Zhaos want to be left alone and kind of have their own colony where they're not.
You have a new ass religion with just a new Iris for some goddamn reason.
Yeah,
the new ALLMOTHER, which is, I have feelings about that, but we'll get into it.
Well, I mean, get into it now. I think because that's kind of this is we see it briefly last chapter, and that's the same. That's the group of people that set themselves on fire, isn't it? But she's supposed to be like the reincarnation of the All-Mother.
like a perfect genetic clone, as close to Iris's original as possible.
Which is not how cloning works. So, you know.
Damn,
That's not how
I'm not a cloning expert, so I don't know.
That's just not how it works. The whole point of cloning, the idea of genetic cloning, is a perfect 1-to-1 replica. That's what you're doing. There is no, other than like the random DNA that may shift and change, but like in the Punnett square, right? Like you're a complete exact copy. You're a 1-to-1 if you're cloning someone. Even if you're a clone of a clone, you're still a 1-to-1 exact copy of the original. So that's not how. There's like, this is as close as we can get. First of all, how would you know? Do you have her DNA? Like, how are you testing that? All of you have the same DNA, and that's not how that works. And secondly, like, okay, you're all perfect copies. That's why you all look exactly the same and have the exact same hair, eyes, and everything. Like, if there was any feature differentiation, you'd be able to see that, but that doesn't exist. So it's just, people who don't understand science being like, science. Which
I think you're thinking too literally about
I was like, I didn't really have an issue with it.
I think she's just like...
But that's not how once again, that's not how cloning works.
Just a fanatic.
Like, I was like, this is a group of people that are already like pretty radicalized anyways. If they're like, she's like, I'm the perfect ALLMOTHER, and people will rally around that.
I wouldn't have had a problem if they weren't like, they explicitly state she's the closest DNA, but they all have
but that information
DNA.
is also coming from the radical group as well.
Because I think she says something like, she's the closest one, and you can even have healer check. Like she's
I would say it would be.
She's so like,
do it, pussy! I dare you.
This is just like the head of the People's Temple saying that he was the reincarnation of Christ. Like, this is just like,
it'd be different if healer was like, yeah, you're actually a genetic perfect clone. Then I'd be like, okay, wait a minute, healer, you're the
that actually has immunity or whatever. Yeah, like that's the one thing.
Well, that's the other thing is that it's a perfect genetic clone, yet she's wearing a mask.
She has no immunity to the virus. And
clearly not that perfect.
But the goal here with everybody is Fixer's trying to raise the ship up. We're underwater, as we stated, and we're trying to get to the surface. And to do that, we need to get kind of to the bottom of that to activate the ship in order to raise it up. But again,
only the original group wants to get to the surface.
Sure.
The other ones don't know or care that we're even underground at this point. Yeah. They just want to change in the government.
In theory, they wouldn't know about the surface and all
they
that
don't
stuff
know
because it would have died. We would have died with the ALLMOTHER, and then obviously the principal government rewrote history. They deleted all of ALLMOTHER's teachings and stuff. So
they only know after the complete communion that we do, essentially, when we get all of the secretaries together. They know all of the information, but at this point, they have no fucking clue where they are. They just think that the world they've always existed in is all that exists, and that they need to figure out how to make this shit work. So,
and the plan to do this is to sneak everybody, or to sneak specifically Blue, back to the orchard, and get her close enough to Principal without Principal knowing.
Principal and her Jow.
That they can then send the secretary through a secretary-sized hole in the glass to get to Principal.
That didn't work.
Well, they have to. The three secretaries have to be in the same room together to send a message to all of the irises, essentially.
Yeah, and I think Blue has to be like within a certain distance of those three as well, and so they were like kind of planning out when they're above still before it all goes to shit.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, you should be far enough away from here or whatever. So
didn't seem like a great plan. Goes horribly wrong, and did not seem like a great.
It did seem very desperate. I guess desperate times.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how well she used.
Fixer is not good at strategy. Very good at just.
Well, what happens is, of course, Mauve and one other Red Guard arrive because they're suspicious of whatever like Principal is doing that Nowhere in Principal, and so they It seems like if they were actually able to cut a secretary hole, it would have worked. But she just says "fuck it" and blows the entire sky open.
The whole sky blows up.
This is when, because you're having this scene, and like Fixer and Blue and the secretary are like on top of what we know as the sky of the orchard. They're in that up above area that Fixer and Watcher were in chapters back in the beginning.
Yeah,
and they come up that lift, don't they? And as soon as the door opens, BB just like fires and kills. I think she kills Mauve, right?
No, she kills one of the
Red Guard.
She kills the other one. That's it.
And then Mauve shoots BB.
Yeah, there's a gunshot, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And BB's dead. And and then Mauve starts coming towards them, and that's when Fix is just like fuck it and just like blows the ceiling up.
Fixer has no idea that whatever because like what happens is essentially the occupant gets involved because the secretary goes and communes with the occupant, and we'll get into that whole repeating of history. But like Fixer has no idea that's going to work, so essentially she just blows up the floor and they're going to fall to their death, which is
she just hopes it'll work. If you get close enough, we can do communion, and that'll hopefully save us.
Look, I mean, the way I kind of saw it is like in that situation, she's either going to die by Mauve or she's going to die by falling down and hitting the floor. So it's kind of like, well, I might as well take the fucking chance and see what happens.
Yeah, because it seems like I didn't see the Jowls up there because I know that they were armed when they came to that bridge or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone up there except for BB actually is armed. And so that they didn't really stand a chance if Mo decided to.
You got to keep the group small, haven't you? Like you can't go with like a small militia up into the
keep the group small, but make sure everyone's got a weapon. You know,
that's true.
they all went underground to kind of create and rally up a distraction so that there would be no guards in the garden when they did this whole plan.
Yes, well, and that's completely based on Nowhere successfully telling the Red Guard to go fight that distraction instead of staying in the garden, which
Nowhere does help us technically.
She does. You know, she does. She comes in clutch. She's like and then she does the big alarm to block our entrance, which is nice.
That's it. Yes, because the whole point is that we are also simultaneously doing a distraction. There's the kind of protest thing. Jared, you're muted. There's the protest thing happening, which is supposed to draw the. I forgot about that stuff. Yeah.
I was scrubbing back through the gameplay here too, and probably because we know, but Fixer does tell everyone in that meeting that the goal is to go to the surface. They talk about the ship being in something they call the Pacific Ocean, and they tell the whole group about this during that meeting too. So everyone, again, I think it's, like you were saying, the goal was to still take out Principal, which I think that's everyone's ultimate goal too, but more or less Fixer is like, we're trying to get to the surface.
Other than in the end of the game, if you choose to not keep Fixer, no one else goes to the surface. They're the only ones motivated to go to the surface. The other ones don't care. They're just like,
it's almost like a means to an end, though, isn't it? It's like the enemy of my enemy and all that stuff. Like, So we blow the floor.
Yes.
And then the communion happens?
We blow the floor, and the secretary has to go commune with the occupant, essentially. So, like, in the time that you're falling to the floor, which is 4 seconds, I believe, is what the game gives you, the secretary has to commune with the occupant, and we have to catch up with it at the top of the mind palace that we enter, essentially. Because time hasn't stopped yet until we actually begin the communion with said occupant. So we have to, within 4 seconds, make it through the whole like mind palace thing.
Did you get 4 seconds? I got 4
minutes. Yeah, it's 5 minutes.
Whatever the time.
I think real life is like that. How much time?
Yeah, real life is only like 4 seconds, but because of the way that like the whole communion stuff works, like time slows down, like in their mind or whatever.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think that's a long enough drop to be a 5-minute drop.
I was like, I could not do that.
They're just falling for like 5 minutes straight. I know that we've had our thoughts about like this kind of gameplay. I thought this was great, and I actually liked the time thing. It kind of like added a sense of urgency to it. And I mean, there's probably definitely a way to fail. I mean, I finished with like a minute and a half or so left.
I got turned around. I think this time I finished with 10 seconds.
oh no!
It's quite easy to get turned around, especially. I feel like in that first third, it's very easy to get turned around because it's easy to go back to where you come from. Like you reach a certain point where you're like, oh, I'm just going upwards now. This is okay.
Yeah. Well, it like loops around, so you can like, if you hit one that's below you, then you go back and have to do it again. Essentially, it is.
I was like, it's hard too because you are timed this time, so there is definitely more pressure. And if you ever get spun around or anything like that, then there's a lot of anxiety and
once again. I agree with you that this is probably the best implementation of this mechanic. Do I think that it should have been as prevalent throughout the game? No. Do I think maybe it should have been more like this throughout the game? Probably. But hindsight's 2020, and here we are at the very end having to do more grappling.
I think to your point, again, I don't think it bothered me too much. But if it was just these last 2 times we had it, the first time when we were essentially, in Watcher's mind and that was falling apart as blue, and then here, I think that would have been like perfect implementation of the mechanic if it was just those 2 parts.
But it wasn't. So yes, you go around the big spiral of doom to finally catch up with Secretary, who's at the top, and then hallelujah, Secretary calls upon the occupant, Iris's occupant specifically, and then we get a section in which we are essentially playing the Halo Forge builder for a reason that was fascinating to me. You end up in a warehouse as playing a Secretary, where you Q and E up and down. I'm like, okay.
Yes. How did you?
You can zip around too. You have like a little like trail.
Yeah, you're the Forge builder. That's exactly what it felt like. I was like, I want to build my own level in this warehouse. Let's do this.
This was visually, I thought this was like really cool. Like I loved seeing all of the kind of memories that were associated with the situations they were talking about, whether it was Iris and Zhao talking and kind of how that was represented here, but also just what is this called? The source. That's what they're officially called, is the source.
Yeah.
And just finally getting all the background from a lot of this too.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting for me was seeing how this was segmented, because it kind of was almost segmented into like sections of Iris's life. There was kind of like a section of her and Zhao. There was a section of her and the sisters, and it was very kind of like not errors, but like there's almost like when you talk to people about like sort of like trauma and stuff like that, there's all this like analogy of like putting things in boxes and leaving like putting things in boxes and leaving them in an area of your mind to like maybe come back to later or whatever. But the idea is that you're like compartmentalizing it so that you don't have to deal with that kind of trauma at that time. And that was kind of the impression I got is like there were all of these like different traumatic areas of her life where she had regrets or whatever that were kind of like compartmentalized, and we were traveling through them as the Secretary, and then we made our way to Source, and then that's when Source does the whole kind of breakdown of like, this, like, I chose Iris for this reason, and kind of gives us this whole lore dump. And I thought it was cool. It was a little bit strange, and I didn't really fully, truly understand what was happening at the time, if I'm honest. I was just kind of like, oh, cool, I'm the Secretary now. Off I go. But then I think once you find Source, it makes sense, because you kind of understand, like, okay, right, like I'm communing with this creature now, and like I'm kind of
you also learned that the Secretaries are a piece of the occupants.
They're a split piece from the occupants in the first place.
Yeah, they take a section of their, I guess the lore based on the words they use. Now, once again, I won't get into the bitchy science of it all, but they're essentially data. That's what the occupants are. Their information manifest, and that information is endless and lossless. And that's the problem, essentially, is that human beings are non-lossless data. They're data with errors. And they go into this whole thing about the piano being an imperfect wave, and that like the conflicting frequency that humans enjoy, essentially, and the occupants don't really understand it, and so the occupants send out this lossless transmission, which is what the virus ended up being. Which is what the virus is, essentially. It's like pure wave energy that essentially just kills the humans, except for the ones that the occupants have selected.
It's also interesting because like the occupants also have no conception of like grief or loss or anything because of them being like omnipotent.
Well,
and I remember Secretary is like talking to them, and they're like, oh, like like you like Zhao died, she was killed, and they're kind of like, oh, that word again, that word death, again, what even is it? Like,
and this is one of the problems I have with this scene, is that the occupants are presented as this emotionless, forever living being of information, right? But there is a reiteration, because Secretary keeps bringing things up like in human terms, essentially, right? Like death and like the end of things. But the occupant does get frustrated and shows emotion and says, like, you don't know what it's like to live in the nothing, because they essentially are born into the vacuum of space in which there is nothing around them. It's just endless information that they have, and complete isolation. And so it's like, okay, either you are this completely emotionless being, or you're lying, and like you do have these feelings, and you are angry, and you are jealous of humanity and their emotion and connection and the way that they communicate. And that's, which I think is probably more accurate, since why the occupants decided to take on the human form anyway is to be like, try to understand and be, have some connection. But it is this interesting weird like back and forth of like, oh, I'm so above all of this human stuff, but yet I seem to be so frustrated by the fact that it exists, and that
also
I don't
wanting
really
to
understand it.
like replicate it to a sense, right? Because in trying to communicate in general, like you said, taking their form, and it is like a little sad because the virus doesn't seem intentional. It was just just the source trying to communicate back to them, and in doing so, like killed millions of people because of it. And it's just like they're just trying to find a way of connecting, and that's how this whole thing started in general. Like you said, it was like you said, this lack of like information and memory, and kind of maybe, like you said, there's no emotion there, but envious of humans that have
They
this ability to store information.
Yeah, they feed off of the pain and the memories. That's their sustenance, is that data. And that's what the occupant decides to absorb, and why they select Iris is because she is a source for this immense amount of internal turmoil and pain to others that the occupant can feed off of and store as data and memory. And that's essentially where it like comes to at the end, why the occupant is so adamant against this idea of death, is because it's like, well, Iris will live on forever in me. This data will exist in perpetuity, in totality, forever, as within my existence, lossless transmission, essentially. Which
very True Detective, time is a flat circle kind of vibe from that statement. Like, they couldn't spring for Matthew McConaughey though. It was too small of a project.
No, just a headless big goop.
I was trying to find there's a theory, or like a conspiracy theory that feels closely related to this, where it's like humans, there will never be like true peace. Like humans suffer on Earth because there's an entity that feeds off of that emotion of suffering. And there's like this idea of, I forget what the theory is called, I was trying to look it up here, but it's very similar to this, where exactly, there you go.
I know what it's like it's a conspiracy theory
where it's like there will never be peace. Like we will always suffer because this entity that is surrounding the Earth, or that is like watching the Earth, feeds off of those negative
sounds
emotions.
Like some Lovecraftian shit.
And but it feels like it replicates here, where it's like, I mean, not necessarily negative, but just the extreme emotions. That's what the occupants kind of are absorbing. They're absorbing these kind of high emotions and everything like that, and feeding off of it.
It's interesting though, because the occupant does a really interesting thing, like you said, where it kind of, it does almost like what humans do, and like you do see it where people are like, you can't understand like what I've been through, and that kind of like the idea that Iris has all of this trauma and the occupant has this kind of like negative emotions and I guess trauma from being born in the void of space, and it's like almost like a competition where it's kind of like, oh, like, well, I've been through this, but I've been through this and I've experienced that, and it's kind of like
the occupants are story toppers. Is it?
Yeah, it's like it's like, instead of kind of looking and going like, we've both been through a lot of shit and we are like individuals and we've both been through our own stuff. Like my story has to be more traumatic than yours.
Yeah,
and so, like, oh, go on.
No, continue.
No, I was just gonna say like it's something like. I know I've done myself when I was kind of in like the depths of my depression and stuff, as it's kind of like, it's almost like you can't, I don't know, you kind of can't see that like other people have their own shit going on because you're so like absorbed so like what you've been through, like what you've been through, and you're kind of like, well, like, no, everything I've been through is like worse than what you've been through. And it's like, well, people can just simultaneously be going through awful shit.
Exactly.
Exactly. I couldn't find the exact theory, but it is.
I did find a theory.
The principle is Monsters Inc., which I do think is adorable, because it's the entire plot of Monsters Inc. is that the monsters feed off of the screams of children. So
so I found the theory. It's called the prison planet theory. While it doesn't like exactly replicate to this, it points out that the Earth is a controlled and artificial environment. It's designed to generate negative emotions to feed and harvest a higher dimensional being. Like that's the whole theory, is we're forced to be here and we're intentionally being put in these bad situations to generate negative emotions from it.
Hell yeah.
Where I know the occupants,
higher dimensional beings, interstellar. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
It all comes back to him.
It all comes back to him. Why is Matthew McConaughey not in this game? I'm ready for that.
Seriously.
I'm ready for him to be in the sequel. I'm ready for that to happen.
1001 times resist.
Exactly. The source also kind of indicates that, because there's a scene where it shows kind of like our solar system and everything and our sun, and says that even when this source dies, the sun dies, the Earth will still be there, because Earth has that like kind of diamond dome around it, which is interesting. It's an interesting concept of being like, I will protect this thing because it's like I'm feeding off of it. So even if this energy source dies, this will still be here, which I thought was an interesting concept.
I don't know how that works. It's gonna be real dark.
It's interesting. So I kind of, although that is the thing, I took it more as like the occupant was kind of like, I've absorbed all of these thoughts and memories, and so the thought and memories will live on with me even.
And I think that's what it is, because I just saw that line exactly, where it's like the planet will remain and its memories will remain too. Maybe not in a direct physical sense, but we get that with some characters and Iris later on, where it's like they don't die. They don't die because their memories will always be with me. I will always have this memory.
And that's kind of like the whole thing with like the source specifically, but I'm assuming with the occupants is they are like just like trauma manifest, basically. They just like absorb all of these memories of trauma and all of this bad stuff, and they hold it with them, and then they go somewhere else. And like it just kind of felt like a personification of like the generational trauma and kind of like just like carrying that with them.
I don't know if it's explicitly negative. I think it's all strong emotions.
That's what I was going to say. It's just strong emotions.
Yeah. It seems to enjoy the negative the most, though.
Well, I think it's easier to get extreme negative emotion, especially
just like our world,
suffering.
negative emotions and negativity ends up going more than anything else.
All I can say is like, I'm one of those people. I'm negative before I'm positive. Like that's my go-to. Honestly,
I give this man a compliment and he shuts down. I'm like,
no, but it's true. Like, like anytime. I don't know what it is. Like anytime something happens, I'm like waiting for the backlash. Like I'm kind of waiting for the drop and waiting for the negative thing to come, and like something happens, and immediately I'm kind of like, oh well, that's fucking ruined. This is shit. Instead of like, I almost like have to get that out before I'm like, okay, no, actually, I can take. I
wonder if it's like a more instinctual thing too, because I mean, even in life, like we remember the negativity more than the positive moments, and we like remember the negative to kind of prep ourselves for if that happens again. Like, right, it's more of an instinctual
it's almost like a coping mechanism, isn't it, for like your mental health and stuff. It's just like it's almost like if you go in with no expectations of something, you can't be disappointed. As like negative as that is, it's kind of like if you remember the worst of it, then if it is bad, you're like, well, I knew it was going to be bad, but if it's positive,
it's like,
you're like, oh,
confirmation bias kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, exactly. They're
going to be a dick to me, so I'm going to be guarded the entire time. So then when they actually are a dick to me because I'm being a dick, then I called it.
Yeah, I knew they were going to be a dick.
Yeah. So I really like this next scene, and I don't know how you guys interpret it too, but we get to see when Secretary and the Source fuse or about to fuse together. We see the scene of Watcher stabbing Iris, and that happens kind of like over and over again. We just watch this happen over and over again, and dialogue comes up, and Secretary is kind of Watcher and Source is Iris, and they're kind of talking as their text bubbles above their head have those names to them. I took this because Secretary insinuated that when she tries to merge with the Source, they're going to be gone. Secretary was going to be gone. Will be no more. And I saw this as like a back and forth battle between kind of like this idea of whose consciousness is going to kind of be the main consciousness here between Secretary and the Source. I don't know if I'm reaching with that or if you guys felt the same way, but when it was kept going back and forth, we saw the scene over and over again. It felt like that struggle back and forth between like which one's going to come out on top. And ultimately Secretary does, which is surprising to Secretary because they thought that they were just going to be, fused with this entity for life and not exist the same way as they did before.
Yeah, it seemed like the way that the dialogue was going back and forth, it almost seemed like that was kind of the ploy, was that Secretary wanted Source to think that Source is going to absorb Secretary again, become part of it again, but Secretary was hiding their motive to actually take over and to like control the Source rather than just be absorbed by it. So I love that that back and forth. It was like showing it from different angles and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I took a couple of screenshots of the whole
there was many screenshots I took in this last section for sure.
yes.
So
And then
many.
like the iris/source being like, like you can't just let this be erased, like this is important kind of thing. And she's like, we can't hold on to everything. Sometimes you just don't fit in the backpack. Love it.
Damn.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I got. I got like it was that on the surface, but I think again I might be bringing stuff to it. But to me, again, it was kind of like this underlying argument of like past trauma and like progressing through it, and like sectary was kind of almost like not putting the trauma behind you per se, but like not letting it define you. And the source was kind of like very much like, this is who I am. And so there was kind of like a to and from of like, it's that kind of that thing that you experience like when you've kind of like been hurt before by like loved ones or whatever. You kind of, like Jordan was saying, like you immediately become guarded. And so it's kind of like, well, like I need to hold on to this hurt that I have so that I don't get hurt in the future. And secretary was kind of like the opposite of that, of like, well, no, like you need to let that go, otherwise you'll never progress and you'll never kind of move forward.
Well, even in like the idea of like a internal struggle with like us, like a great thing to do if you're like you're trying to come out of a lot of that trauma that you have, and everything is like sometimes almost like visually representing it as another individual helps. Like if you have this version of you before that is very reserved and guarded and is against progressing, and then you have another version of you that's, you're going to therapy, you're trying to do better, you're unpacking these things, having like a visual representation of that being two individuals sometimes helps, because you're like, this is who I was before, this is who I am. And even though they're both me, like in the sense they're becoming one entity, you can kind of, I don't want to say have one win over the other one, because you're not trying to murder yourself. But it's like
you choose whether it defines you, right? Exactly. That's the underlying theme. Is like, this was the way I saw it. Was, yes, it was like secretary and source having this back and forth, but it was also like a definition of like, what's going to define me? Am I going to leave this behind and try and kind of move past it, or am I going to let this trauma define me?
Yeah. It's great having the both of you in here, because I know you both have like the psychology background too. So like, getting that like angle on all of this is great. I love it.
Yeah, that is like a legit technique, is to like, if it's like your, if it's depression, anxiety, whatever like your mental health struggle may be, to also think of that as like an outside thing that is like, yes, it is part of you, but it's not the entirety of you. So to be like, yeah, like, oh, my Jared's acting up today is what I say,
yeah, exactly. I love that.
I've heard of people like sorry, real quick. I've heard of people like, you're naming their illness, their struggle after some like celebrity that they hate, because it's like, this
so
isn't
funny.
me. This is
like Keanu Reeves.
Another way that's like a less like hate direction too is if you associate it with like, especially if you're talking about like younger self trauma, if you associate that with a younger version of yourself instead, and then you're like, oh man, this kid was just like doing the best that they could with the situation they were presented, that helps a lot too, because then you do less self blame in that sense. You're like, this is a kid. I'm not going to be angry at this little kid for just trying to survive, right? He's just doing his best.
Joke's on you. I'm always angry at little kids.
That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry at little kids.
Yeah, and like I said, and it's something that's interesting, because I watched like 2 or 3 videos of like people's theories and stuff, and like one of the kind of common themes that come up was like what you bring to like the game and like your personal experiences and stuff. And obviously like the game is very much about like Asian descent and kind of the generational trauma of people who have been through like oppression and stuff like that. I'm a fucking white ass dude in the UK. Like I'm not really oppressed. Do you know what I mean? Like the only kind of connection I've got is, I mean, some of us believe we are, but we're not. The only connection I've got is like the mental health side of stuff, right? So like, it's interesting how like there are themes that kind of are specific to time and place, right? So I think it depends. Yeah, it depends on what you bring to it.
And that's why this game is so special. I think it's one of the prime examples that we talk about of, like, games as art, and like what you're bringing to the experience of playing this game is probably going to inform like what resonates with you and what doesn't, or whatever else. And like, you could see 3, 4, 5 different videos all talking about completely different things that they took away from the game, and none of them are inherently wrong. It's just, that's how it informed their experience of it.
And I think that's what was interesting is, like, I watched one video of somebody who was like Filipino, and they played this game, and they were talking about it, of like their kind of experience of like racism and oppression, and like what the racism and oppression that their like grandparents and their parents went through and stuff. And so I was kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't resonate with that whatsoever, unfortunately, but it's
cool
interesting
perspective to have, that you can have multiple perspectives for that.
Even as another white ass dude just in the United States, like that early chapter where it's like the flashback to the school, and I think it's Zhao that says that, like, the occupants have already, or the disease has already come, but I don't think they've actually realized that there's like aliens yet. So they're talking about like, oh, the people in the school are blaming like people like me and you for this virus. And I was like, wow, like COVID allegory.
I was going to say, look at COVID, like, the amount of fucking like Asian hate that came from fucking COVID and stuff. Like,
seriously. Yeah.
Oh,
and I mean, we get it, like, like, I'm sure you guys get it in the States, but like we get it here in the UK, like, like somebody who is like just so happens to be an immigrant commits some sort of crime, and all of a sudden it's like, well, every immigrant must be a criminal, and it's like, what?
I don't know if you've seen the news lately about what's going on in the United States, but it's not great. It's not great.
It's the most ludicrous
racism. It's everywhere. No one's exempt from it. It's everywhere. This next section in particular is real strange. It's really interesting. After you go through that scene, you're now in like your first person perspective, and you're kind of, I don't even know where you are. It feels like you're in a horror game, but you're kind of in like this decrepit looking, it looks like Old Town. Like, it does look like a version of Old Town too. I specifically have some beef with this, just because for some reason, this is kind of, you're walking through and like you see Noah talking to bartender. It's all in first person, and then you see Healer talking to BB Fire, and it's kind of all this is directly after the scene with Iris and after they merge and everything. But for some reason, I don't know if it was like a graphical issue. There's something with like the cutscenes being in first person. Every time I would talk to BB Fire and Healer, after BB Fire would say a specific line, it crashed. Not only the game, my entire PC was shut off and shut down. And I did this 4 times, and every single time it happened, people were talking about, unplug your peripherals, make sure your drivers are updated and all this stuff. And I did all of that. And ultimately how I fixed it was I had to play the game in windowed mode. And I still don't really know what the cause of this was. People were just saying like, for some reason, the game being in first person in this was messing with some like video driver or something. But I have games like crash on me, never my entire setup. I thought because I have the plugs for all my stuff underneath my desk. Like, at first I thought I'd kicked something, and I was like, oh shit. I was involved. I was immersed in this, and I had to shut it down, and then spent like an hour trying to figure out what was wrong.
That was actually part of the experience, man. You're supposed
to. You're right.
Unplug from the Matrix.
So it wasn't the epilogue. This was this section that you had problems.
No, this is the chapter X. So chapter X is right
you said
after.
You in Discord said you're having problems with the epilogue, but it was just
I hadn't realized where it had ended and the epilogue had picked back up again. But no, this is in chapter X when you're going through the first person in the Old Town and everything.
This chapter didn't make any sense to me at all. I kind of understood that, like, at first I kind of took it as like ghosts of the past, right? Like, we were kind of experiencing like conversations that happened that maybe we weren't privy to. And there's a conversation between like Iris and her mum where they're on a set of stairs. And
I actually really like that.
That was really good.
My interpretation of this section is that you are occupying the like combination of all of the memories that have existed, right? Like, it's everything together for the first time, where you're not experienced, because like we obviously experience existence linearly, like we go through time in a single direction, things happen, we remember some of it, we don't remember some of it. The occupants, once again, if they have truly lossless information, all of that information exists all at once in perpetuity once it happens. So like, you have all of these different time periods, all of these different people, all of these different moments, like coming together in a single location, and it just happens to be a weird, creepy basement, which, to each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
And I think part of
but
it could be that since I think you're nailing it on the head there. I think it's also because since this is a shared communion with everyone
That's what I was
for
gonna
the
say.
first time, so that's why healer and bartender and BB Fire and like everyone's in there, and so like maybe one of the only shared spaces they can think of is like those apartments in Old Town kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Like that's I'm not
Well,
sure.
and I think these things can exist too because I mean, as we've seen in other communions, it's not really a reflection on reality. It's just going through a memory, and we haven't seen that happen on mass before. So, like Kai was saying, this is like everyone's kind of communion memories coming together and being able to interact in specific ways. We see Watcher back talking with Fixer again. Iris gets to talk to her mom, and I don't know if these are directly scenes that are happening, more or less things that are happening in kind of a mass communion.
Yeah.
So this was really interesting because one of the videos I watched talked about a theory I'd never heard of, but was the theory of something called post memory, which is basically something that came out of a researcher was looking into specifically Holocaust survivors and the children of Holocaust survivors, and basically found that the kind of stories that children of Holocaust survivors are told and the imagery that they are fed about what their parents went through was so strong that it almost formed like a physical memory in them as if they had experienced
it themselves.
Interesting. And this was kind of something like she did multiple studies, and this was something that was passed down into like then the grandchildren of the survivors, because then the parents were kind of layering these stories onto them and explaining like, and it was almost kind of like again, like another form of generational trauma. And so it was kind of, at first I thought like that. I was like, oh, like this is like a mass communion. So we're getting all these memories of different people who were involved in the communion. But then this video was saying that like this was the developers' way of like kind of trying to express like post memory from like an Asian perspective of like what sort of like Asian grandparents have gone through and how they push that down to their children and then continuously, and like it forms this post memory. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. I do definitely think it is in one way or another. It is kind of the culmination of everybody's memories.
Yeah, that almost reminds me of like there's that scene where I think it's before we see all the explosion of that where it kind of cuts to Principal, and I love how they in that cutscene with the dialogue, or they keep cutting back and forth between her speaking as Principal and her speaking as youngest, and she's in one of those snippets she talks about how she was using Secretary to essentially like surgically go in and like rewrite her own memories because of how like painful they were. And so like that, what you were just talking about with like post memory kind of reminded me of that, of where our, again, just with the psych background speaking, like our memories are so much more fallible than we ever want to believe that they are, because brains, our minds hate gaps in information. So if we have like part A and part C, who knows if part B actually happened, or if we were just finding a way to connect the dots. And you may remember a blue shirt, but it was actually a red shirt. Like it can be minor like that, or it can be major, like how trauma can rewrite your brain. And so
and that's what they were saying. Yeah, it was really interesting. That was like I watched a video from the person who kind of came up with the theory, and she was basically saying that how like people can get details of these things that their parents went through that are so traumatic that, like you said, then their brain then fills in the spaces and kind of actually inflicts trauma on them just through the description of something that happened to them. And it was something that like through doing like support work with people who had like alcohol issues and stuff like that, like we was always told to be wary of like vicarious trauma, like hearing traumatizing events other people had been through and how that kind of impacts you. And like, there's only so much listening about domestic violence and stuff like that you can sort of listen to before it starts to impact you. And like I just thought it was really interesting to like sort of just to think of like, I never really thought that it's something that could happen where someone explains to you so vividly about their time at Auschwitz that you kind of feel like you were there and you have this kind of trauma thrust upon you.
Well, not only that, I mean, it's reflected too on this kind of ending scene that we get when Secretary tells Blue that I kind of overwrote everything, and now you get to decide what stays and what goes. This ability to be like, even these people that aren't her, these are people, these individuals, these aren't her memories, but being able to kind of cipher through this and get rid of what you don't need and keep what you do. And we as a player we talked about all the endings. This is kind of where that decision happens. You have all the individuals, you have your parents, you have the Zhao clones, you have everyone here, and you get to decide what comes with you and what stays, what is not going to exist in this world that Secretary is going to create for us. And I'm really curious. As we said in the beginning, I think we all had that same ending path, and I'm curious of how we got there. Kai, I'm gonna start with you. What were your choices here, and kind of what were your thoughts as you were deciding? Did you just pick everybody? Did you have certain ones you want to do?
Everybody, absolutely.
Everyone gets to survive.
I made the mistake of keeping Mauve alive.
Ooh, I almost did that. I went back on it
the first time I did this because I was like, and then you just immediately die, which is a real bummer. Fortunately, if you make the wrong decision, you just go back to where the occupant essentially is allowing
you. Don't get one of those two true.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah. You just go back.
Yeah.
I then got the blue epitaph ending because if you choose to not bring Principal forward, which I was like, I'm done with this bitch. She's
some people are just beyond forgiveness.
Yes. And the Red Guard I didn't take, and the fucking fanatic ass perfect clone people I didn't take, and Mauve I didn't take.
Let them have their little religion, man.
No, absolutely.
Did you keep them?
Yeah, I kept them.
I kept them.
Oh wow. The only ones I kept. So I did what you did at first, Kai. I did Mauve, and then Secretary is like, "Are you sure?" And she like explains. There's like a little like thing that she explains that she's going through this. And as she went to Mauve's, I was like, actually, that doesn't sound like the direction that I want to go. It's like you've chosen a future that will be ready with the knife, and I was like, that feels really aggressive.
I don't want that.
So like I'll go through the since like I'm sure we'll talk about the blue and red endings. The other endings are if you don't get rid of Mauve, you get killed by Mauve.
You get executed.
If you get rid of Mauve but you keep the Red Guard, you get executed anyway. You die by firing squad. Sick. If you get rid of the Zhaos, you essentially the game plays through the blue ending, but you see Blue in her like future suit that she has in Epitaph Blue. But she's so heartbroken by discarding the Zhaos that she like cries and I'm assuming kills herself is the ending.
Jeez.
But she's like bawling at the like the little like white post thing that you have where she's like, all these Zhaos have died or something. All right, calm down, big girl. If you get rid of the like team that you're working with, if you get rid of like Fixer and Healer, you never make it to the surface and everyone dies in like you just all die a very quiet, silent death because that's what happens. If you don't go to the surface and you just try to rely on this thing sustaining you forever.
That's what I thought was gonna happen.
And then what's the other group?
There is the
old people.
Red Guard. There's your parents.
Those don't. Neither of those have any impact, so you can turn those on and off.
I was really fucking annoyed that your parents have no impact in the game whatsoever.
I mean, they're not. They're also not your parents.
It's erasing the memory of Iris's parents. You thought that it would have some sort of impact, given that the game's about generational trauma.
Right. And her mom was generationally traumatic.
Whether you leave, whether you decide to, I mean, people who have abusive families or families who have trauma, like you have to make a decision at a certain point of like, am I willing to accept these people for the pain that they've caused me and be my own person, or do I leave this behind and I don't interact anymore? Either way, you can live a successful life. It's just you have to make that decision.
Do you know what? Fuck. Yeah. He's got me. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. So those are like the other options. If you leave Principal alive, you get Epitaph Red, which essentially replaces Blue as the final person at the end cutscene that you get. So you have Principal show up in a wild fucking future suit of some kind. She has like a weird deer head thing with a bunch of tubes coming out of it, which I was like,
okay. Spaceman.
And you do the same thing in both. You go around and you read the history of the sisters who had fallen in, the who'd eventually died.
Like.
Yeah, she's
Whoa,
looking real crazy. So you essentially
shit.
you play a Zhao at the end of the game. That's who you are. So you're a Zhao
In
visiting.
blue.
You're Zhao.
Or in red as well.
In both.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
Both you are Zhao.
That's what I assume with the voice.
That is
yeah.
visiting the place of reckoning, essentially, that allowed everyone to escape into the real world. And both of the like gravestone things that are written change depending on who it is. So like Principal has her own explanation of people versus Blue, who has her own experience of people. So if you read the like dedications to them, they change. Like Blue is described as a terrorist when you're with Principal.
Yeah, makes sense.
When you're with Blue, Principal is described as a maniacal villain who did eventually was not able to be saved, essentially, because like she obviously dies in that version.
Yeah, I think it says something really cool. I'm trying to remember. I think it says something like somebody who was harmed in return, kind of thing, which is just like one of the thesis statements of the game, that generational trauma like personified in one little gravestone.
But those are the endings.
So for me, in the choices, I kept the sisters, so Fixer and all of them. I had them stay. I had Knower stay, even though she was playing both. I picked Mo first because I was like, I wanted this idea. I wanted to go to the surface, and I had this idea of change and peace, but I needed structure. And I think Mauve had like the authoritarian vibe to it, where like I could create some structure. But then the secretary is like, "Are you sure she'll change?" And I was like, "Well, fuck. Okay, no, I don't think she'll change. Let me." So I chose Knower instead. And Knower, I know, is all about survival. We'll play both sides, but I think that if we were going to survive, I think someone like Knower would be important to keep. So I kept Knower, and then I kept the Zhaos, just because I was like, they had the shit end of the stick this entire time, and I feel like deserve something good to come out of this whole situation. I'm trying to find what the thing said. It was like, Secretary says, a future that faces past wrongs head on, no matter the cost. And I was like, Zhaos have been wronged every point in this history. So I was like, the least we could do is give them a world where they could just exist without having to be someone's slaves or having to be bullied.
They are like the true victims of this game.
Yeah, they really are the true victims of the game. So those were the three that I chose, which ultimately led to the epitaph Blue that we had talked about too. But Ben, what were your choices here?
So it's probably easier for me to say who I turned off. So
yeah, same.
Interesting. Yeah,
I only turned off 4 people. I turned off Noah because again, talking about like, what you bring to a game when you're playing it and blah blah blah. Sure. I was looking at it from a perspective, not a survival perspective. I was looking at it as a perspective of how is Blue gonna progress past this trauma that's been thrust upon her and everything that's kind of been experienced through Iris. I was like, Noah is like too much of an outlier. Like I can't afford to have Noah around if we're talking about like progressing past trauma. Like Noah just can't be there. Principal was like an absolute no. That was like there's no way on earth. Like that would kind of be like, do you let Hitler live? Like
well, it was more like what Kaya said too, and I think it brings it up in this point, like lifetimes of choice to make the right decision and countless times made the wrong decision. So it's like
I wrote down what it is the secretary tells you, because I thought this is why I kind of stuck with initially I turned off the Zhaos because I don't think I fully understood what the game was saying, and so then I went to secretary, and secretary was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to kill the Zhaos. Let's put the light back on."
What's interesting is that just real quick before you continue with yours, it seems that secretary always asks you about at least one thing. Like, are you sure about this? Like, no matter who you choose.
Yeah.
Because I got pegged on a different one myself.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I turned off the red guard because I kind of saw that as like this like authoritarian, force that's being kind of kept in the world. As I can't keep that in.
Yeah.
And then I got rid of Mauve as well. So I kept on the parents, the older sisters, the Zhao, the fanatics, I think that was it.
Interesting.
And then when I went to secretary, she was like, "Oh, you've chosen a future that casts aside the knife for more difficult incisions, aspires to new instruments but leaves you vulnerable, faces past Ron's head on no matter the cost, seeks to persist the surface regardless of unknown and possibility of pain, recognizes past contributions and goes more slowly, allows for comfort of tradition at risk of docility, knows some lines must not be crossed regardless of survival, relentlessly seeks justice for those ignored, believes some are simply beyond forgiveness, and remembers where you come from without knowing remember where you came from knowing you can never fully connect to it." And again, this is like what I'm bringing to it, but like coming at it from the angle of like, I want Blue to kind of move past the trauma that she's been inflicted on her. I was kind of like, this is the only way she's going to get past it is by kind of like cutting the past and making a fresh start, but not forgetting it and kind of remembering how she's been shaped. And you know, I said in the last episode about like things that I've had to deal with, things like ways to behave that I've learned from my parents, and how I kind of had to like address those in order to kind of better myself and not do that onto other people. So again, I really went heavy with the kind of like trauma recovery kind of angle in my ending. But yeah, that's what I got, and then I got the blue ending as well.
Jordan, what about you? I'm curious of what you chose this time, and was it similar to what you've chosen before? Because you had obviously have played through this and finished this.
Yeah, it was similar. I feel like there may have been a couple of differences in which ones I left on and which ones I turned off. But for this time, for last night, refreshing my memory of it.
Sure.
Of course, turned off Mauve, turned off Principal, and Knower. And I think in my original, I may have left the parents on. This time I turned them off, just like as I was re-witnessing all those things, and like just kind of thinking of not being beholden to the trauma that was inflicted on the original Iris from her parents, mostly her mom, but her dad was kind of like, if not an inflictor, then at least an enabler of.
He was almost implicit in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was like he wasn't holding the belt, so to speak, but he was in the living room while it was happening. You know what I mean? It was like,
exactly,
kind of thing. For lack of a less, or for lack of a more elegant way to explain that. But yeah, I remember originally. So that did give me Epitaph Blue as well, and I remember it was so funny in the original time that I played through it. It gave me that same kind of pause, like where it asked you, so you're saying, Blue, that some people are beyond forgiveness. And like in my personal life, I try not to think that way. Generally, obviously there's going to be exceptions no matter what, but like generally speaking, that's not how I tend to operate in my life. And I was like, yes, I'm saying it for this context. I have to say
yes, asterisk.
Yeah, for like just and the whole thing with Knower playing both sides and stuff, and it's especially coming at it, replaying it to last night in this current climate that we're in the world, and it's like there's no room for playing both sides for heinous, terrible things. Like you're either complicit and enabling and or enacting these horrible, horrific abuses on these people, or you're trying to stop them. There is no like, oh well, I'll dirty my hands a bit just because it's for the greater good kind of a thing. And in the context of the game, it makes sense, and I'm sure that there are people who have done that in history and came out on top, sort of a thing. But just for the for what's going on in this game and in my mindset now, it was doubled down on that for me. Of no, we're gonna go ahead and just turn that light off and walk away from it. So
it was cool sitting back and just kind of talking to everyone, because they all have like a little quip that they say beforehand, like Mauve's like, I'm not gonna get on my knees and beg you to keep me existing, kind of thing. So it was interesting to hear everyone's perspective, and then the Epitaph Blue like end where you kind of see Kai had touched on the going through the orchard and seeing everyone's kind of gravesite and how they're being remembered and presented, and we cut to the ship that had actually surfaced from the ocean, and the ship that they were flying on fly away, and then it cuts to obviously the past where they first initially finally reached the surface, and seeing Blue kind of take off her mask for the first time, and then seeing kind of these manifestations of Iris running towards like her original children. I thought it was like, I loved it. I loved the kind of final representation, and Blue finally taking a breath, which is almost kind of like the literal sense of being able to breathe the clean air, but just like finally like done with this world, and kind of the opportunity going forward of like the future holds so much, even though like there's a lot that could still go wrong, sure, but just like there's so much opportunity for there to be new things and new
but it's interesting as well, because like, again, bringing a trauma angle to it, coming in a little bit deep, I apologize, but like
this game is all about being deep, so
one of the things that I've kind of learned over the years, like, is like I've said before, like, my parents were by no means perfect growing up, and there was definitely some shit that happened that shouldn't have happened, but me myself, by holding on to that, I was actually like sabotaging my relationship with my parents in this current day and age. And so I think it's really interesting how like Iris kind of, you do all of this stuff, and Iris is kind of like, Blue is reborn, sure, and then it's also my like, Iris has been given a chance to kind of like hold her hands up and almost like seek forgiveness, and she's been accepted by the children that she kind of like impacted this trauma onto. So it was really interesting, because it's like through kind of addressing my own shit and kind of like facing stuff that's happened in my past, and my relationship with my parents when I was younger has actually like benefited my relationship with them now. And it's almost kind of like seeing that, like, they aren't the people that they were when I was like 7. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're talking like 2 decades later, like each of us have kind of like changed as people. And so it was kind of like, I saw it as like this kind of symbolization of like not letting the trauma go, but like processing it and kind of moving past it and not holding on to, because it festers resentment, really. That was all I kind of found, was
absolutely
like, I ended up kind of being like, I don't want to talk to my parents because of how they were when I was little. And it's like, but that's
not
20 years ago.
Not only that too, but just like this idea of, and I'm reflecting on this now as I'm going to become a parent for the first time, of trying to like protect, which we see kind of with Iris and even like Principal, like protect your children from these things that you had trauma for, like you experienced a lot of trauma, but then them not even having to experience the same situation, like the situation that your children are in are very different than what you were in. Sometimes even trying to protect them from those, hypothetical situations almost is like, you're overcorrecting at that point. You almost are creating new problems and trying to protect them in the first place. And I think that, like you said, not bringing a lot of that past trauma over, the generational trauma is not only just like, in one sense could be you acting the same way as your parents, but then on the other end of it, you like overcorrecting and now trying to, you're creating new problems that didn't even exist there, trying to go against what you were raised in the first place too.
And I think that's kind of how I saw like the theme of it. It was kind of like,
for sure,
we broke the generational trauma, right? We kind of like broke that cycle, and now like Iris was able to connect with her children. Okay, it's all hypothetical because they're all dead now, but like it was kind of that
their memories alive forever.
Like, exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting because, like I said, like, I watched these videos and people were kind of coming at it from the angle of like, well, like my parents were like Asian, or my parent, like, my child was a Holocaust survivor, like whatever. And it's just really interesting. And I think that's like, the one thing I've kind of took from the game is like, it's re-cemented my kind of idea of like video games being art. I know that sounds almost trite at this point, but like,
no, if there was any example in the past 5 years of that,
it's this
is in the top
this,
for sure.
This idea that like, everybody could play this game, and it is deliberately ambiguous to the point where like you are going to put your own shit into it. That's been kind of the most interesting thing for me in the whole playthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Gentlemen, do you have any kind of final thoughts here or anything you want to touch on with the story before we do our overall review and scoring of 1000xRESIST?
No, not really.
So
I didn't know if there's any other story stuff you guys wanted to touch on. We touched on Epitaph Red, which is kind of the same reflection of what we've seen before. But not only so, but the cutscene at the very end is the same too. Aside from seeing Principal in the garden and going through and having the graves reflect Principal's perspective of everything, the end cutscene where it switches, it's still Blue looking down at Iris and Iris going to her children. Like that ending cutscene is the same between both of them. That situation still happens regardless of what you choose. So
I will. The only thing I would say is I hadn't really thought about it until Kai mentioned it, but I do kind of wish now, thinking about it, that maybe you just kind of got the ending you got and then there were credits.
Yeah, I was even credits, and I mean, they still open the opportunity
even if you go back to
go back with the chapter select. Even just like having credits roll, it's like it makes you sit with your choice. And if you want to go back and experience more or watch other YouTube videos, you have that opportunity to do so too. Like you said, it kind of it keeps the choice within the players rather than there being kind of a select correct ending. Like even a bad ending should still be like, these are the choices you've made and you had the bad ending, but that's just what happened. Those are the choices that you made. You have to live with kind of the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like your save file deletes once you roll credits, is it? Like
you just uninstalls from your system.
I do think that it's good that they still let it play out. Like it's not just actually, Blue, you shouldn't do that. Try again. It's like it still lets you watch how it plays out. So I think that, at least for me, it does help mitigate it. But it just so happens that the choices I made originally did not lead to one of the quote unquote bad endings or like immediate like restarts. So I'm coming at it from that angle. So just take that with a grain of salt.
For sure. Well, it's curious too because I obviously I saw, Ben, you got the achievement as well on Steam, and it's 24% of players get the Epitaph Blue, which is a very low percentage for that being like kind of quote unquote correct ending. Like for only 24% of players get that achievement is kind of crazy.
Do we know how many people get red? Because I reckon most people who get red either keep Noah or Mauve. Because I reckon they're the two kind of like ambiguous ones, I guess. They're the two that you kind of look and you're like, And it's that, like Jordan, like you were saying, that line of like, nobody's beyond forgiveness. Like that's such a fucking powerful thing to say. Is like,
well, it's also like it's way more black. It's like it's way more nuanced than that, right? Like,
exactly.
Some situations that's the case. Even like in my choice, right? Like I did choose Knower, and the fence riding is something that is unfortunate. But even in that sense, it's like you could see Knower and be like, you could forgive Knower for the choices that she made if there's change that's happening, right? If that behavior persists, that's different. But even between Knower and Principal, like you have just those two things are very nuanced takes on this idea of forgiving people for their choices. Unfortunately, I mean, I probably could see if I Googled it, but on Steam, it's technically a hidden achievement, so I can't see it.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, for some reason. Okay, well, let's wrap this up and give our review. Ben, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on 1000xRESIST, and what are you scoring it?
Yeah, I mean, I've said a bunch of stuff throughout the episodes, and here, you know, I think it's really interesting for me coming at it from the kind of the angle of like someone living with like mental health and I guess like trauma from childhood and stuff like that. So it's been interesting to see that side of stuff. The one thing I will say is I do feel like maybe not like most of the game, but like at least the first half has a pacing issue. I think it's something that is it's almost kind of the length of gameplay is like very long and then the twist is very big. And I kind of wonder if maybe if it was paced a little bit differently, so like there was smaller twists in between, if that would, because I feel like kind of like Kai said, the first like 3 or 4 hours it's kind of dry plot wise, and it does pick up towards the end, but it does make it a little bit difficult to play, I guess, at first, because it does feel kind of dry. And I get what Kai was saying in terms of, you know, it's a good thing to watch. And I know I made a joke about it. It would be better as a play, but I think it's one of those things where, like Kai said, you're not really there for the gameplay. You're kind of there for what you're watching. You're watching the plot unfold. You're watching the conversations between, ALLMOTHER and Youngest and all of that sort of stuff. And I think the things that are interesting to watch come too late in the game. That's not to say that
interesting
that you shouldn't necessarily play it, because if you can get through that kind of dry period, I think you are rewarded at the end with the twists and the revelations and everything that kind of comes out and the themes that are discussed. I can see how some people may play this game and kind of give up before they get to the quote unquote good part.
Interesting.
Overall, I had a good time playing this game, and I say that in kind of like air quotes because it was kind of hard, because there's a lot of like themes that I've discussed, of like sort of my personal experience.
As good as playing a sad boy game usually.
Yeah.
He was talking about sad boy indies. I'm like, just tag me next time, bro.
But it's been interesting, right? Because it kind of has made me reflect a lot on, even just if I look back in the last 10 years of like where I was then versus where I am now, and kind of like the work I've put into myself and like the work I'll continue to put into myself. And it kind of just like cemented this idea that like the cycle can break. And, I'll be perfectly honest, like I don't want children. One of the reasons I don't want children personally, and it's not you. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to persuade you not to, Jared.
No, I think I agree. So I think this was my perspective before too. So
like my biggest fear is like fucking up my child, like having a child and then like putting something onto my child, the like trauma that I was raised with, or kind of making a bad decision or being too overbearing because I'm trying to be too protective or something like that. Like I don't think personally I'm at that point where I feel that I could confidently do that, and that's kind of like one of my biggest scares. So playing this game that's all about generational trauma and kind of like what you pass down to the next generation and how it affects the generations going on was a really interesting experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Score, I think I'm gonna go with an 8.
Okay.
I think just purely because it did pick up in the end, but the zip bits are so fucking tedious. They're so tedious, and they still, even at the end of the game, they don't really make any sense. I don't know why we can do them. Is it because it's in a communion? I never really fully understood what was going on with that. And I think also that kind of dry period at the beginning, like I said, made it a difficult interaction. Like it's one of those things where it's kind of the double-edged sword of doing this for the podcast, where in the sense of like if I played this game on my own, I would have probably
finished it a long time ago.
I don't necessarily know if I persevered. Like, would I have just kind of gun and runned it and done it in 2 days and it wouldn't be so bad? Or is it because we played it over the course of like 5 weeks at this point that I'm kind of feeling that dryness more?
Interesting.
Because you hit, because the way we do things, we've said about it before, you hit a wall and you can't progress. So you kind of like get this feeling, you're like, okay, I have to stop now, and then I need to wait another 6 days before I can sit down to record to play the next part. And so it's interesting to see how much of that kind of impacted it. But yeah, I'd say like a solid 8. I feel like if you're interested in the game, but bits that we've discussed that maybe put you off, then I could totally see what Kai's coming from. Watch a gameplay, even if you watch like a no commentary or something, like but I think it is something that if you're at all kind of interested in video games as art and kind of what you can put into the experience you play, then it's definitely a game you should play.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's why like, I mean, I still am on the stance that video game reviews numbers are arbitrary. Like, it doesn't mean shit. We started doing it here now. Just I think it's bullshit, but like people understand what they mean, right? If I say something's an 8, you have a general idea of what that means. It's more good than not, right? You have a sense of what that entails, and I mean, it's just like Ben was saying that, you know, wow, and I completely lost my train of thought. Cool.
Oh, Jared.
That's like 4 times a day for me minimum, dude. I get it.
Yeah. Not even a dad yet. I already got dad brain happening here. Damn, yeah. Don't even know where I was going with that. I mean, I still think review numbers are arbitrary. Oh, I remembered what I was going to say. That's why it's important to like understand and read people's words, because
1000%.
like that is what's going to be important. And you have to understand that these people reviewing games are playing them in a very different situation than you would be, right? I mean, we recommend games here, we give reviews, but like Ben said, someone may take like a weekend or maybe like a week to play through 1000 times Resist, and we played almost 2 months of it. So we're playing video games in a very different umbrella than a person that isn't a content creator or isn't reviewing them professionally are doing too. So I think you have to take that into consideration when like looking at reviews. And again, I understand that the numbers are easy to attach to, but like listen to people's words. Like look at the number, sure, like cool, 8, but listen to what the fuck people are saying. That's the important part.
It's like when you see someone online and they say a game's bad, and you're like, I just know that you saw the thumbnail, you saw the score, and you've not read the review.
I can't tell you how many.
You just
the
know
the top comment in all IGN reviews is just the score. Like, here's the score, guys. You don't have to, like, you don't have to read the review. Here's the score. Yeah. They gave it a 6, burned them to the ground. And it's just like, okay,
I remember like somebody posting on Threads about their enjoyment, or maybe it was just screenshots or something of Star Wars Outlaws, and I made a comment of like, I will forever go to bat for this game. I love that game so much. I got the platinum trophy. I'm not a platinum hunter. I have like 15 total ever, and like that's one awesome. Of them. But like, somebody coming at me in the comments of like, how can you stand by it when it did blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you did you even play it? Or did you just see someone say that the woman was ugly and that it was Ubisoft, and you decided against it? Like, just shut your mouth.
You decided to slam your forehead into your computer. For me, as I think we've kind of been talking about overall feelings throughout the entire episode, and obviously the game in general. But like, I had an amazing time with this game. There's few games that I've played recently that for the podcast and other content that have a like lasting impression. The other one that I think about, which comes up all the time, is Until Then, another fantastic indie game. I still think about that. 1000 Times Resist is going to be a game that I think about occasionally for like the next year or so. It's going to pop up, whether it's experiences, talking to the boys about it, things that happen in the game. Like it is a amazing experience going through this and having a conversation about it. I think that's what helps as well. I think having people to kind of bounce ideas off of and theories is kind of what is best about these games that are very ambiguous at times with their mystery that's going on. And like, again, theory crafting and throwing theories around is my favorite part. I didn't have as much friction with the beginning of it. It is slow. I'll give it that for sure. The zippy sections, they don't make a lot of, they're not explained very well, although I didn't really have issues with them. I will say maneuvering around the orchard without a map, which we have in these last like 2 episodes, I'm always lost. It's such a cumbersome area to explore.
Especially the last bit where they're like, "Oh, go find the resting place of Principal." And I'm like,
where would she be?
I told before you popped into the call. I was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like, I already played the game a year and a half, over a little bit over a year ago, and I started through chapter 9. I got through chapter X. I got to the epilogue, and I managed to find all the gravestones, and then it tells me to go back to find Blue, and I like took a wrong turn, and I was like, exit the desktop. I'm not doing this. I'm so tired.
Well, so much so that I got 3 achievements at this very end, finding secret places. Like, oh, you found the pillar room, and oh, you found the secret earth room, just because I got lost trying to explore. So I'll give it that, and I have to understand too, into the context of this is these people's first game, and regardless of the quality, regardless of like, you can tell, I can tell this is the first game, it looks bad, it's voiced over bad. The fact that we're even comparing it to things like Disco and things like What Remains of Edith Finch and things like Kentucky Route Zero, even if it's in the breadth of conversation with those games, that is something to boast about, right?
Yes.
Like, first try, you're doing great, and even though you're lacking some of the mechanical skills of building this out, you've made something incredible. And regardless of how people are absorbing that, again, whether it's a watched playthrough or you're experiencing yourself, this is one that's going to last. And there's very few times when this happens, but like Sunset Visitor is going to be on my radar now. Like if I see a game they're developing or a part of it, it's like, oh, yep, I'm going to check that out. That's going to be 1000%. Like a day one purchase, or 1000 Times Resist. or at least just like keeping a strong eye on them, because they've made something that's so impactful and has created such a lasting impression for people too. So I'm really curious of where they're going to go next. I loved this game. I loved connecting it to, like Ben said, the generational trauma, and it's something that I'm looking at too as someone that's, has been going deep into therapy recently and is now becoming a father too. These are a lot of things that I reflect upon. And I mean, Ben, similar as you, I was anti-kids before for that reason. And I was like, the world fucking sucks. I don't want to have a child to come into this world too.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you now, as someone that's on the other side of that, like, I'm so fucking excited. Like,
I'm glad.
Like suffering is gonna happen. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and we just do our best, and that's kind of what we've come to. And I'm incredibly excited to show my little child the beautiful things of this world, get them addicted to Pokemon cards, so I can have a bigger Pokemon card budget.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously this is not like, if this is your only reason for maybe deciding to have kids, maybe pause for a second. But like,
yeah,
children, because I have 2 kids. For anyone who doesn't know, who's listening to it, there's like a running joke on Drop and Dropout where there's a chat command on Twitch for !kids to see how many times I've mentioned my kids on the podcast. But awesome. They started it off at 100, which is probably not very accurate. So got a bone to pick with them. But
right, no, that's so funny. It is represented information.
It is like a way to put light into a world that is so void of it at times.
Sure.
And again, like, maybe that's not reason number one that you should do something like that.
Yeah, please don't have that be the reason.
It's almost like, well, we're having relationship issues, let's try having a kid to fix it. Like, maybe don't.
That's not gonna work. Yeah. No, I completely agree. It was fun, kind of, as I'm going through these early stages of pregnancy. I say I'm not doing anything. My wife's doing all the work. I'm just here. I'm just existing. Yeah. But it was fun to kind of reflect that on some themes that are brought up in this game too. So with that, I'm the same as Ben. I decided my score before we were on the recording. I'm also giving this game an 8 out of 10. I think that I think if we were doing 0.5s, I would have gone like 8.5. This is close to a 9 for me, just for context. Again, numbers don't mean anything at all. So this is closer to a 9 for me. But I can see people having some frictions with points in this game, and I'm maybe an outlier. Matt Storm from Fun and Games had brought this up. They said that usually when they're playing a game, they're pretty immersed immediately. I'm usually like that for most games, and I was like that here. Like, I'm in. Like, at the beginning, I'm in, and it takes very. What? I sound broke. Oh no! Ben's whole headphone is falling apart.
Sorry, I'm just gonna.
I'm so glad we do video now too. This is great. This is perfect. But yeah, I'm in. I was in from the beginning, and I was hooked, and I liked the story here and there, and I'm glad that I have people that can, bring me down to earth and kind of show me perspectives of things that I might not have seen or missed, because I enjoy having that varied perspective. But this was incredible, and this will have a lasting impression on me for years. I will be thinking about 1000xRESIST for a long time now.
My final thoughts of 1000xRESIST. Weak beginning of this game, I would say. The first 3 hours or so are pretty mid, as I described them earlier. Good ending, good final section. Pretty much everything after you get to blue is like, this is really strong. This is good. They needed to work a lot more on the context setting and like the whole Iris, world building that happens at the beginning. I kind of understand the way they approached it. I just think it wasn't as strong as it could be. This is truly one of the most prime games for just watch. There is no fucking reason to play this game at all. You can watch it. I think you should watch it.
I think watch someone play it.
Watch someone play it. Also watch it on 2x speed, because there is so much part of this game that is so fucking slow, like just walking around and not being able to like skip through dialogue more quickly. Just like, it's fine. Watch someone else play it. You're not going to get it. There's no mechanical benefit to playing through this game and being like, oh, yeah,
zippies.
Zippies, he said.
Exactly. That's exactly my point, is that the zippies are not necessary. I think it's a solid entry, a first attempt at telling a story. Obviously people like this game a lot, and I could see part of the reason why, kind of the mystery and mystique, and it has that vagueness that is very satisfying. A lot of like Kentucky Route Zero tie-ins of like what is going on and what is happening. I just think things like Kentucky and What Remains and games that are also heralded as these great achievements in what a video game can be do the gameplay element way better than this does. There's a lot more interactivity, there's a lot more draw, the art style is better, the voice acting is better, the environmental design is better. This feels very nascent, and like obviously it was created by a bunch of people who had really never done this before, and so in that context it's a very impressive achievement to do something completely outside of your wheelhouse and to do it so successfully at your first attempt. I do think given more time and more development and more practice at doing this, I think they'll get better at it, and hopefully they'll be able to connect more of that storytelling and theatrical experience with like actual rooted mechanic gameplay interest to kind of tie those things together better. Overall, if you are a sad boy indie game person, I recommend that you watch this and think about it and engage with it and try to understand it. I think if you're someone who plays video games because you really enjoy the experience of like participating in something or having your decisions decide things, or the mechanical challenge of something, this is probably not for you. Like if that's the satisfaction that you get out of playing things, you're probably not going to enjoy this very much. Like it's very cerebral and hands off for the most part. Your dialogue choices pretty much in the entire game make no difference on the story whatsoever. The only thing at the end you get to decide, and even then it's like it forces you into what a correct ending is, which I kind of find like silly, where it's like we're going to give you this choice, and then it's like, well, there's only 2 real endings where you can roll credits and all the other ones just send you back to make you try again.
Would you have preferred it if Blue was like executed by Mauve and then it was credits?
Like if all of them rolled credits, like if every single one of those options could,
because you make the choice. So it's like to
tell me back and do a different
to tell
choice.
me that there's a right choice based on my. So like you play the whole game, you experience all of these things, and you make a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
And that judgment call for me was like, okay, Principal has had infinite lifetimes to make the right choice. Mauve has existed for a short time in a very specific circumstance, and I believe that because like the whole decision is that who, after getting all of the context, is going to be the same, right? Because it's not that these people are just themselves. The whole purpose is you're betting that after they know all of the knowledge, they have all of the knowledge of Iris and what she did and the world that you exist in, they all have this perfect, complete understanding of all of the decisions in making that go around it. Will they change, right? Like that's essentially the judgment call. And it's like, I made that judgment call. I guess I'm wrong. But then to say like, no, you need to do a better job deciding who stays and who goes is like, well, that kind of misses the point, right? Because it is about my personal perspective. I'm being forced to be like, no, you have to keep these people alive, or you have to kill these people because they're bad, right? Like, I think that was pretty reductive. And once again, I think it's just a lack of like really understanding how to make gameplay connect with the story in the way that is compelling. Like they kind of had to like force a way to get to the ending they wanted, which is fine. But yeah. Those are generally my thoughts. Like once again, I think it's an okay game. Do I think it is a crowning achievement of game design and storytelling? No. But I do think it's worth experiencing, and I do think it has some interesting things to say, and I hope that you all out there enjoyed it. Am I giving it a ranking? Are we doing that?
Oh, that's what your score was.
I'm going to give this a solid 5.
Okay.
Good damn.
Hey, Ben, you shot up.
I was messing about and drawing on my phone, and then he said 5, and I was like, "Whoa, fuck!"
Is that low or high?
that was lower than I was expecting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like there are good parts of it. I think it does a lot of things poorly. I think if I was judging just the storytelling and narrative alone, it'd probably be closer to a 7, but it is so impacted by any lack of interesting mechanics gameplay wise that it's like
sure. I can see that perspective. Especially if your 5 is like 5 out of 10, that's like half. You're like, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad, and that's my half now.
And once again, I'm telling people you should experience it. I'm just saying,
for sure.
playing it is not necessarily, there's no benefit in doing that. Like you can
ironically
that,
it would be a better play than
it would be a more enjoyable experience if you just watched it from the beginning and like cool.
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
That's it.
Before we jump to Jordan.
Yeah.
2 things. First,
one of them has to do with your headphone.
Ignore my dangly headphone and my fucking doorbell that's ringing. Firstly, I called it about Secretary being able to connect a virus because she becomes she gets part of the occupant DNA or whatever it was. Blah 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 blah. And 2, it means that the overall play along score is a 7 out of 10.
Hey, there you go. So I don't know if I agree with that, but that's how we do it here.
It's that 1-5 outlier that's really, really dragging us down.
We could just raise his score. No one will know. Just kidding. He is entitled to his score and his opinion, and he is valid for that. Yes, Jordan, I wanted to pass it over to you to see if you had any kind of high-level thoughts at the end of this. Again, you had played it already, so do you kind of have any kind of different perspectives playing this a year after you had played it before?
Yeah, it's really interesting for me. So something about me that, as far as my gaming habits and stuff, this may have been the first. I don't know if this is truly what you would call it, but for lack of like a better connection, this is very visual novel adjacent, at least.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I never really got into, like, I think I tried, what was it? I think it was Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. Like, I gave that a shot. I had no idea what was going on. I stopped after like 15 minutes. That was years and years and years ago. But I just kept seeing stuff about this game, and like the trailer was really intriguing, and so I gave it a whirl, and I was very interested from the start. And then I think it was, I want to say it's chapter 4, which is the one where the communion where Youngest tries to clone Zhao, and then that was all, like, that is embedded in my brain and will never leave. Like that entire, like, just going from like, this is really interesting, I'm vibing with this is really cool, but then it going to that, and that series of events was just so like shocking and disturbing in the way that they played it out. And I really, really enjoyed it. Who knows what would have happened otherwise, but because of me enjoying the game, and I made a video essay about it, and that posted like January of 2025. So it's been over a year since I've posted any content on my channel whatsoever about this game, and it is still consistently on YouTube Studio one of the tags that gets people to find my channel, because it just keeps popping up for people. And because of that, because I made that essay on Blue Sky, a lot of people make those groups, where they like, here's like all the people that Fellow Traveler, or maybe it was, I can't remember if it was Remy himself or if it was someone from Sunset Visitor, somebody put together a group of people who have made content about the game. And so like Eric the Human was in there, I was in there.
That's awesome.
Jacob fucking Geller was in there, who's like my video essay idol. I think Matt Horton's in there as well. All these people who are just excellent creators. And then like more people were finding it. And because of that, I kind of had the guts to be like, hey, Fellow Traveler, the publishers of Citizen Sleeper 2, can I have a code for this game possibly? And they're like, oh yeah, here you go. I was like, oh my God.
That's awesome. Wow. That's so
like,
cool.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I would have really wanted to try that game, because I didn't play the first one before I played Citizen Sleeper 2. But because of my enjoyment of 1000xRESIST, I like branched out and wanted for that game, which ended up being my number 2 of the year last year. Like
fucking fantastic.
So this was like
I need to play it.
Yeah, that was like my this was my gateway drug into like more visual novel style games that like were not really my cup of tea. That's where you've been. They weren't really my cup of tea before then. And now I'm so happy that I gave it a shot though, because wow, it's really stuck with me. It was funny looking back on the GG app. I think I had it at number 12 for the year, and I'm like, how is that possible? Because I think about this game so much more than some of the other games that I ranked above it. But I think I put it there just because it wasn't my typical, thing. But yeah, I even going back and replaying it and just rethinking about, the events of the game and stuff, I think I'd land more to 9. So if you do want to bump your score up a little bit, because I was on the episode where the scores happened, you're welcome to do that.
Oh shit, maybe.
Man. We're at an 8 out of 10 instead of a 7.
Dude, this headphone is doing my head in.
But it's been funny, like watching you play with it. For one, it looks like you have a dangly hoop
I'm trying
earring,
to hold
which
it.
pop off king. And then seeing you like tuck it behind your ears, like your hair has been
You're like,
hilarious. Oh, oh no!
You can tell I'm not used to flicking my hair.
Yeah. Are you sure? Your beautiful locks. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, yeah, that is our thoughts and review of 1000xRESIST. Everybody, thanks for listening to the series. It has been a great one. I've enjoyed so much playing this. Shout out to Emily from No Small Games because she helped me kind of structure this series going in, because I usually want to split it up in a certain way, but even just looking at walkthroughs doesn't help a lot, because sometimes, you know, chapters will have good cliffhangers, and I wanted that for this series, and I think she nailed it, because every episode at the end we were just like on the edge of our seat trying to figure out what's happening next. So
how great is Emily, and how great is
Emily?
Kate?
They're
I
great.
mean, come on,
They're fantastic. Shout out to No Small Games. But yes, so our last order of business before we get out of here, we have to figure out what we're playing next. But first, Jordan, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast and
thank you for
kind of
having me,
reviewing the end of 1000xRESIST for us, man.
Yeah, it's again, was an honor to be asked back, and especially talking about this game on top of that. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said at the top of the show, everything, whether it's content clips or drop in, drop out, will be in the description below, so you can check out all of them down there. And there's loads of content for you to listen to and watch if you're interested in this. And again, feed Jordan's algorithm more and go to his YouTube show for 1000xRESIST and watch the video essay. But Ben, passing it over to you now. What is going to be our next book club series? What game are we playing next?
Yeah, it's a game I've wanted to play for a while, and I wanted an excuse to play it. Jared, you fucking nailed it, man.
Did I nail it? Let's go! Fuck
so
yeah!
We're going to be playing Dispatch as our next main series.
Nice. Let's go.
So there's 8 episodes, so we're probably just going to split it into 2 episodes.
Yeah, 2 each
episode we do.
I think they released it 2 at a time anyway, so that's perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, there you go. Sure. So for anyone who doesn't know, basically you play in a superhero workplace. So you basically play a former superhero who takes a job being a dispatcher for different superheroes. It's got that kind of like Telltale element to it, where there's dialogue and, you know, choices have impacts and stuff like that. There's romance options.
I'm so excited for this,
dude. I mean, looking through the voice actors like Aaron Paul, Laura Bailey, Travis William, Matt Mercer,
a lot of Pierce.
Yeah, Lana Pierce is in there, Jacksepticeye, Moist Critical. Like, there's loads of fucking people involved. There are some gameplay elements which, depending how we get on, Kai can turn off because they're quick time events, and I know he's not.
Those are optional. I've only played the first chapter, but that is the thing where you can like you can have it be automatic, so it's just a full cinematic, or you can have the quick time events be part of it. So
yeah, so at least we've got that option if because I know he's very averse to quick time events, so we can turn those off if needs be. But yeah, I think it's currently about 20. It's like 20 odd bucks here in the UK. I don't know, 30 in the US. Yeah. It's on Steam, or I wouldn't recommend playing it on the Switch, but it's on the Switch. Maybe Switch 2. I don't know how.
Switch also has it's censored too. It's fully, so you can't turn the censors off on Switch.
Oh yes, because I heard about this because they didn't release a Japanese exclusive port.
They didn't release a version that didn't have that, so they didn't have an option of.
So I'm going to be playing it on Windows personally, but it's on PS5.
I think it's also on PS5. Well. I think it was originally went like Steam and PS5. I'm pretty sure. But.
Yeah, cool, dude. I nailed it. I fucking called it. When I saw that you and when Matt was on the show and they were like, "Oh, I've wanted to play that." I don't know why. My first thought was like, new game that they would love. Dispatch is perfect for that.
So yeah, I'm excited. This is I've had this on my radar for a while. So yeah, very interested to see what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, yeah, episode 1 of that is going to go up on March 3rd, and I'm assuming we're going to be going through the first 2 chapters of Dispatch. So
yes, sir.
That's exciting. Yeah. So stay tuned to the socials, the Discord for the full breakdown of that. We'll post a full schedule of when that's going to go up, as well as artwork for all of that series. But that's going to be fun. Talk about a game with like, we're going to have very different choices and decisions that will have like pretty big effects on Endgame and what we see too. So it's gonna be cool seeing the three of us and whatever guests we have on that of what they decide and everything too. So that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm very interested.
Well, in next week's episode of the show, we are going to be joined by Eric from the Unlockables podcast. And this year is the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda and the 5-year anniversary of Play Along, which is great, which is awesome.
Ooh, very cool.
And we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, going through kind of a retrospective on that game. That was the very first game that we played for our show. It's actually coming out the day after our anniversary. February 23rd, 2021 is when we dropped the very first episode of Play Along Podcast. So we're celebrating 5 years this year, which is incredible.
Huge
Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who's been listening to us and our bad takes for the last 5 years.
I think we've had some okay ones in there.
Yeah, some okay takes. It's generally been awesome. It will get much more sappier in that episode as well. And it's great to have Eric on the show because Eric was one of the first people to reach out to us that said like, hey, someone recommended your show for us. So I wanted to listen to it. So Eric's kind of been around Play Along since the beginning too. So that is going to be a good time. Play more Ocarina. But yeah, that is all we have for you guys. Be excited because our next book club game we're playing through Dispatch, which is coming out soon. And next week we're talking about Ocarina of Time. So that's going to be a fun time. But with that, we love you all so much. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and we'll see you next week. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.